What's good YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing us another video. Today I'm bringing us a video on Lupinranger versus Patoranger episode 37. This episode is called A Place to Return, and the episode overall was pretty good. This episode had some pretty serious moments that really made the story feel dramatic and major, which is good. I actually like that a lot. The tension and story going on there, and it definitely feels like they're building towards the end, which is good. Again, that's one of the things that I do appreciate about the season overall, is that there's definitely been some aspects of things building up, although overall it's been this inconsistency with that, but this one definitely felt good in that regard. Next episode, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. But anyway, let's get started. This episode begins with us seeing the monster called Goham. Goham is actually kind of funny because the name kind of derives from its ability, like go home, like if you westernize it. In a way, it kind of works in that way. You may think it was intentional, probably, and it's an interesting thing to do. So anyway, what actually happens is that this gangler has the ability to summon portals. So initially, the Lupinrangers are fighting the gangler. We also see the portal in there, and things are going okay. The Power Rangers do arrive in the scene at one point, and what's happening is that suddenly these portals are coming out where he's able to punch at random different positions to attack the Power Rangers. The Lupinrangers already know about the gangler's ability, so they're not caught off guard by the sudden portals. But what they are caught off guard, and this is something that all of them are caught off guard by, is the fact that he has a special ability where he can send people back to their homes. And the thing is that 5 of the 6 of them return back to their homes. Well, actually, all of them do, except for Kyrie, because actually I wasn't thinking of Noel. I believe Noel was there as well. So anyway, each of them returned back except for Kyrie. And why Kyrie wasn't returning back? Well, because Kyrie doesn't really have a home. That's something that we obviously know because of his current state of being. He lives in the bistro, sort of, although even then he's not really living there. It's one of those unusual situations, per se. And so that's a big difference where he wasn't sent off, but everyone else was. So at the same time, we also see that Power Rangers are trying to figure out what they can do. They decide that they need to live outside. The Lupinrangers realize this as well. We end up seeing that Kichiro wants to buy a tent so he can live outside, and that will be his home. Same goes for Omika and Toma, which they end up doing. So again, they're trying to play off of that idea, because if a tent is what they need, then what happens is if they're sent by a portal, they'll just be sent to where they are because their home is on their backs, in other words, because they'll wear it as like camping gear. Kind of an interesting thing. We do see Kichiro interacting with Toma and Umika. Umika tries to make an excuse as to why they're not with Kyrie, about how they got into a fight. While in the cases of Toma tries to make it out like rather than them being in a fight, the bistro was closed, but at the same time there was a fight. Like, that's kind of how he goes about doing it. Anyway, what does end up happening is that we do end up seeing conversations that occur between Kichiro and Toma. Kichiro wants to know about Kyrie because he's seen Kyrie being upset, and he always has been this kind of a little bit more depressed, not so happy person, and so he's a little bit more concerned with his well-being as to why he comes across a certain way, per se. And what we do end up seeing is that with this whole situation, Toma doesn't want to give any information, but he says, like, maybe you should go talk to him. And so what happens is that Kichiro goes out of his way to go actually over to where Kyrie is, and he goes to speak to him. They have a conversation. He wants to really get to know him and understand, why he seems to be upset a lot of the time and have these kind of emotions. And Kyrie's thinks the reasons, like with his family and all that, and his brother, but he doesn't express those emotions. And at the same time, Kichiro really does try to press a bunch, but Kairi is not so willing to straight up give him that information, at least not yet. What we do end up seeing is this conversation continues to progress. Eventually, what does end up happening is that we end up seeing that Kichiro ends up sleeping in the bistro. Kairi has to stay awake to make sure that no funny business happens with Kichiro, where he's snooping around. And at the same time, the next day occurs. We do end up seeing that Kichiro tries to speak to Tsukuya about his venture to try to Tsukasa about his venture to try to understand Kairi. And the thing is that, you know, he really does want to pursue Kairi, but Tsukasa tries to tell him to like just be like kind of watch his ways with talking to him, you know, just to be careful to make sure he doesn't make him feel uncomfortable or whatever. She tries to make him understand like how his approach may come across and all that, which is interesting. Anyway, what does end up happening is that eventually they are confronted by the Gangler. The Gangler does not have any portamen. What we do end up seeing is that the Power Rangers this time get in the fight. We see Kichiro using the camping bag with the tent in it. So what happens is that we see Tsukuya and Tsukasa together fighting against the Gangler, and at one point the Gangler tries to use his beam that would teleport Tsukuya away, but what happens is that Kichiro gets in the middle of the blast, so what happens is that he isn't teleported at all, so he's able to actually protect them because of his current state of being. And so we actually get to see a lot of different instances that occurred there, which are pretty cool. I actually like those a lot, to see these interactions that happen. We do end up seeing eventually that Noelle ends up opening up the safe to get the Looping Collection item out, which the Looping Collection item, if you're wondering what it's based off of, it's based off of the Geki, Geki Saber, the one that was used by Geki Chopper, like the arm weapon that he uses from Geki Ranger. Geki Chopper, if you're wondering, in America, that was the Rhino Ranger. So that's actually pretty interesting, from Power Rangers Jungle Fury, by the way. So anyway, what does end up happening is that they do manage to defeat the Gangler. We actually see Kichiro use the police boost with the with the not the police boost, the biker boost with the bike trigger machine. And so we get to see that happen. They do manage to defeat the Gangler. The Gangler is turned big. What we do end up seeing is that Kairi wants to work together this time with the Power Rangers. And so what happens is that Good Striker tricks Kichiro into finally forming the mecha or whatever. But what happens is that he thinks that it's just going to be like normal Pat Kaiser. Instead, what actually happens is that they form what do you call it? Good Cool Kaiser. They actually start off with Ex-Emperor being used by Noelle, but it doesn't work, so they actually end up having to use Good Cool Kaiser, which Kichiro initially is not in favor of really taking this form after he finds out that Good Striker tricked him, but at the same time, Kairi wants to do it because of Kichiro's efforts and his way of trying to help him out and everything, and his current state of wanting to really learn about him and care about him, which is something that kind of shows respect towards Kichiro in a way. Because again, they've had this weird relationship between the two of them, and it is interesting to see. So we do get to see Good Cool Kaiser use. We actually get to see them swap the cannons that are on the shoulders. Rather than just having the red and blue dial fighters, they actually swap them to Splash and Magic like the Splash and Magic ones, so that way we have those, which is actually pretty cool to see. And then they actually do the finisher, which is great. I do like that, and overall, it leads to a cool, quick defeat. We actually get to hear their outros, like, Forever Ado, and we also get to hear Mission Complete, which is kind of cool because we get to see how, like, they respond to each other's, closings. And then what we do end up seeing is the back of the bistro, things are okay. Initially Kichiro is going to approach Kairi again, but what actually happens is that in this case, the Power Rangers arrive at the bistro more as a friendly matter, but at the same time, Kairi doesn't really want to speak about anything, so he goes off and, Tsukasa tells Kichiro to maybe keep his distance and not get too involved, but Kichiro says that he wants to keep an eye on him because he cares about Kairi still. And yet we see Kairi kind of looking off in the distance and thinking about his brother, and the episode pretty much ends there. Now, as far as the preview goes, as I said before, there's a couple things that will be happening in the next episode, episode 38. The next episode will introduce 2 new mechas, one being Victory Striker, one being Siren Striker. I believe Siren Striker is supposed to be from outer space, or both of them are. I'm not exactly sure. Additionally, there is going to be the introduction of Super Lupin X, which is going to be the power-up form for Lupin X. As far as whether or not there will be one for Patoranger X, from what we know, does not look like the case. And what we also know is that it should be happening relatively soon, if not by next month, that they should be introducing, Lupin Red's super mode. As far as whether or not Patoranger and Ichigo will get a super mode, we don't know. If it's happening, I am expecting probably sometime in December for that confirmation to occur. But again, don't assume anything until we have official details. And personally, at this point, I'm pretty doubtful at all that it's going to happen. Just keep that in mind. But maybe they'll surprise us with something last minute. It is cool to know that Lupin X, that we'll be getting a power-up mode for Lupin X. What that does mean, though, is that probably Lupin X will be used a lot more often than it already is being used because of this form. I'm also very curious to see how it will function, what abilities it will give to Noelle. Also, with these new strikers, what that means is that we can actually see, both teams fighting now and not just have the current situation. I mean, as we've seen before, we've had it where Lupin Magnum has fought alongside Pat Striker, but we could actually have it where that can happen, and then we can have like these 2 other Striker forms fight alongside it, and also have Emperor. So in other words, we could have like a 5 mecha team setup, which is pretty crazy to think about. Because I wasn't really sure how many mechas we would have by the end of the season, but if that's how many we're having, that's a lot. And the fact that we're getting 2 next episode that will be like pretty significant is pretty interesting. If you're wondering if they will support the Patorangers, from what I know as of now, it only sounds like the Lupinrangers, like the Dial Fighters, will be working, but maybe they'll introduce some later combinations that will support the Power Rangers. It's just as of now, we know that the focus is really on the Lupinrangers. As far as when the 2 teams will work together and like officially work together, not just use mechas together, it's still unclear. It could be towards the very, very end of the season. Could be really, really soon. We don't know. It's still very much so a mystery. But anyway, that's about it for me, guys. So let me know your guys' opinions about this episode. Did you enjoy it? Are you guys looking forward to the new mechas and also Super Lupin X next episode? Personally, that episode looks pretty awesome. Also, Zamiga will be returning next episode, which is pretty cool. So a lot is supposed to happen next episode, which I am very excited about. And definitely worth looking into. And most likely that means that if all that's happening next episode, there'll be a continuation with newer forms and new stuff happening in the following episode. Because again, even when they introduce something in one episode, they tend to follow it up with more information and more stuff in the following episodes. And what that could mean is that like next episode, is that episode 39 may have that with other mechas fighting alongside it. And then at one point they may have it where like all 5 are fighting alongside each other. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like that stuff is going to probably happen towards the very end of the season, like during the last 3 or 4 episodes, if not a little sooner. But we'll have to wait and see. So again, that's about it for me, guys. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I am Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys.